Good evening. I know we'll have a few more guests coming in, but if you would go ahead and find a seat and let's get the meeting started. Good evening. My name is Scott Mitchell. I'm the principal here at Brocks Gap Intermediate School, and we welcome each and every one of you here to our school. Welcome to our first Hoover City Schools Community Rezoning Feedback meeting. This is the first of a series of 4 meetings that we will be holding, and we're excited to have several of our board members here, several of our principals. Where are our principals in the building? We'll have them raise their hands. Carol Barber, she's hiding. We're pleased to have so many of our city leaders here, especially to have our staff here from Hoover City Schools Central Office staff. Dr. Kathy Murphy is going to get our meeting started, and so I'm going to turn the mic over here, but we just want to welcome you to our school and look forward to a good meeting.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Scott Mitchell and his faculty and staff for allowing us to hold our first meeting here at Brocks Gap. To all of our principals and other school personnel who are here, thank you after a long day of spending your evening sharing this first meeting with us. And to our city leaders, I see John Lyda in the back. I may be missing others, so thank you. And to our board members, we have Jill Gaddis Beach here on the front, and Craig Kelly, Earl Cooper, and am I missing? And we probably have others on the way, so thank you also for that. I want to just share with you what I'm going to just kindly make reference to as ground rules, and somebody's controlling for us there. And we chose to talk about sort of the ground rules from the way we talk about what we expect from our students. And one of the things that we say to our students in our schools on almost an ongoing basis, and we thought it was good to remind us as the adults of this too, is that we always want to be respectful, responsible, resourceful, and be safe. And so just to talk just a minute about that, we are a respectable community. We are respectful people. And I know that this is not going to be an issue for us. We are going to we're going to treat our community with great respect and dignity, as I hope you've seen us always do. And we're going to ask that that be reciprocated, not just to us tonight, but to each other. Because there are some real varying positions in this room where we're thinking very differently about this plan. Some are seeing concerns and complications and challenges and issues, and others have been up to say, wow, this is good, this is working for us. So we know that diversity of opinion exists in this room, and our expectation for us as the grown folks is the same as the expectation that we have for our students, and that is that we're going to be respectful. We have children with us in this room tonight, and so we want to model and we want to demonstrate the expectation of that to each other. By the way, we are live streaming. Technology is a wonderful thing when it works. So our intention was to live stream last week's meeting, and we had some glitches. By the way, there's nothing hokey about the fact that today our school zone locator went down. That wasn't because we were doing anything strange and unusual and different. Things happen with technology, and so we're delighted tonight that we're live streaming. We hope that that'll stay up and working for us. And I will tell you this, we have people from Washington, D.C. this evening viewing this meeting, New York who are viewing this meeting, and the federal courts who are reviewing our meeting. And so again, I know that we want to present ourselves in a very respectful manner. And we want to be responsible. We must keep our discussion forward-focused and productive. We can agree to disagree. But at the end of this, we want to make sure that we've been responsible in the things that we've said. We are neighbors and friends coming into this room, and we should be neighbors and friends when we leave this room. Sometimes the things that we say in the heat of a moment are never ever forgotten, and people get really, really hurt. And that's not what this night is about. This is not our plan versus your plan. This is not us being agitated and aggravated because we have to have this meeting and hear from you. We're here because we want to hear from you. And so the respectful presentation and the responsible actions and attitudes, and then be resourceful, if you will. Please make sure when you come to the mic, you tell us who you are. Please make sure that you realize that there are a lot of people in this room who want to talk to us tonight. There are people who have questions they want to pose in addition, present to us in addition to the questions that you might have. And so I want to ask that when you come to the microphone, please don't come with 14 pages worth of questions, and you want to make sure before you have a seat all of your questions are answered, because that's not being very resourceful of everybody else's time, and everybody has a right to share. Tonight, I want to ask, because this meeting is at Brock's Gap Intermediate School, that we give first Brock's Gap's community, South Shades Crest, and Deer Valley the opportunity to come to the microphone. That does not mean those of you who do not represent this community have no opportunity to speak this evening. You do. But we're in your house. We've come to this community, and we certainly want to make sure that we're not remiss in failing to have this community have that opportunity to share with us. And we want to be safe, and from that, no throwing rotten tomatoes. But even bigger than be safe is this should be a safe environment for us to share. A safe environment for us to talk about what's best for this school district and for our children. So we want this to be a safe place. I have received volumes of emails. I have done my very best to respond to as many as I could. But I know that many of you are sitting out there saying, I've emailed the superintendent, she hadn't said a word to me, and she hadn't responded, and that was 5 days ago. I'm just going to own it. I have not answered all those emails because we've been very busy trying to prepare and plan and look at your suggestions. So because we've not responded doesn't mean we've not looked at your emails. We have. And I think you'll see in a few minutes that we've really tried to study and be thoughtful about that. I also want to say this. We have a plan for how best we believe to walk through this process. And we shared that plan early on. The community meetings in the fall, have some time with the Department of Justice and Legal Defense Fund, which we did in December and January, and then we would come back out to the community, and here we are. What we did not commit to, and what I do not believe is in the best interest of moving forward or this plan, is for me to become splintered off with little tiny segments of people in the community. I think we all hear each other. We all get to have the forum, the opportunity to speak, but I don't think there's any real benefit in me going to the side and meeting with lots of individual 4 or 5 folks over coffee or whatever that might be. I think it keeps this process cleaner, and it is the process that we said that we were going to adhere to. And so for those who've been offended that I've been unable and unwilling to get splintered into smaller meetings, I'm going to own that one too. I just think it's the best thing for the plan. Please don't dominate the microphone. We shared that. Let me tell you what's not going to happen tonight. What's not going to happen tonight is you go to the microphone with a really, really good idea. And we say to you, man, that's great, and we're just going to change the plan now. Okay, so that's not going to happen. So if when you go to the microphone, your thought is, tonight we're going to say, okay, we're going to make that change. What we're going to say to you is, thank you for that suggestion. And we're going to look at what you share with us. And we're going to look to see if your suggestions will help us accomplish the overall arching and meet the expectations and the needs of the whole. Here's something that I've had to remind myself of, and that is, this is a school district. This is not a district of schools. And if you'll think about that with me, what I'm trying to say to you is every school is important. But this particular plan is a school district plan. So if I was just making a plan for Brock's Gap Intermediate School, that plan may look very differently if I was just looking at one community and one school than it's going to look when I'm looking at Brock's Gap as an important factor and an important school in an overall school district plan. So tonight we're not going to say to you, great idea, we're going to make that change. We're going to take notes. You're going to see those notes being taken. We have notebooks of your emails. We've studied your emails, and we've been thoughtful about that process. Okay? So just quickly, I know tonight is not about me and a presentation, but I think there's some things that we might say that might help you and may certainly let you know that we've been thoughtful about this process. So, who all has a part in this rezoning? You do. Thank you for being here tonight. I wanted you here tonight, and I want to hear from you tonight. So thank you for being a part of this process. Our employees are important to us. I'm meeting with our employees on Monday. Any of our employees who want to be in a session with me all day long, our children are out of school, all day on Monday. I think there are about 4 or 5 sessions scheduled at Spain Park High School, and any and all teacher groups who want to come in and share with me will have that opportunity. Our community at large. The United States Department of Justice is in this process with us, and they're one of the parties, one of 2 plaintiffs in this process with us. And if you have questions about that, we can talk. And then the Legal Defense Fund and Educational Fund also have a part in our rezoning, as does the United States District Court have a process here. So just quickly to remind you of our rezoning numbers, and I don't know, did we change that so that was, can you see that? And if not, maybe you can take notes. We have right at 2,500 students being affected by this plan. That's 18% of our total district population. And you can see the students by elementary, middle school, high school, the impact on those students, the preponderance of, or the most impact is on our elementary children, and you also see the impact is not disproportionate on our black students versus white students, as our minority impact, black population impact is 47%, and our white population 45%, and other nationalities and ethnicities an 8% impact. So what have you shared with us so far? So that you don't think we don't get it, and please don't think we're not listening and we're not reading your emails. We're looking at our surveys. We've had right at 800 responses to our survey. We've had hundreds of emails. And here's what we know that you've said to us. Looking at the Bluff Park Elementary zone to Simmons and over to Hoover High School, we know that there are concerns from the following communities: Cresco and Stonebrook, who are now zoned in this proposal to go to Gwynn. And we know that there are concerns from Page and O'Neill Drive, with those students being zoned to go to Green Valley. When we looked at our Gwynn Elementary School to Simmons Middle School, Hoover High School feeder, we know and have received a number of concerns from the Preserve, Magnolia Grove, Highland Crest, Pinewood, with all those communities going to Trace Crossings Elementary. In the River Chase Elementary School to feeder zone Berry and Spain Park, we know that Quail Run and South Lake have concerns. They've been zoned to Rocky Ridge Elementary. And Chase Lake, Barrington on the Green, Waterford and Summerdale have concerns. They've been zoned to go to Trace Crossings, and also they have been changed to the Simmons Middle School and Hoover High School, a change in their feeder zone. We also know that Rocky Ridge Elementary School, feeder zone to Berry Middle School and Spain Park, that there are concerns among those at Huntington Trailway and River Oaks, those students being zoned to go to Green Valley in this proposal. At Trace Crossings Elementary School, which is the Bumpus, Simmons Middle School, Hoover High School feeder, concerns have been expressed to us from Scout Creek, Lake Trace, Creekside, Chestnut Ridge, and North Ridge, those students going to South Shades Crest and Brock's Gap in the proposal. And then there are some general concerns that have been shared with us that was not necessarily community or street or subdivision, and that is, what about the increasing poverty in some of our schools? And when you look at Green Valley Elementary School, it is 46% moving to 50%. Now, you may say to us, well, that number looks a little bit different than the last time you talked about that, and it does, and it is. One of the things that I want you to please understand is this: students come into our school district on a daily basis, Students go out of our district on a daily basis. In addition to that, there was we had our students who were free and reduced lunch identified through C&P, but for some reason with about, I don't know what that total number was, 10 or more students, we did not have them through the registrar identified as free and reduced. And you might say, well, why didn't you get all that done and have your homework right? Well, I'm pleased to say to you that we are digging and we are researching and we are looking and we are seeing. And so when numbers change, please don't conclude the very worst. They don't know what they're doing. They're making up numbers. That's not what I saw last time, because that's not what's happening. Children are in and out. We're digging, we're researching, and we're going to give you the very best information and data that we can. So we're concerned about the increasing poverty in some of our schools. Gwynn School would move from 29% poverty to 40% poverty. Simmons Middle School moving from 27% poverty to 37% poverty. And so why? Why did this happen? Well, just quickly, I want to show you, and by the way, you can go to Google and pull this up yourself, where are our multifamily dwellings? Because one of the things that we want to make sure that we all remember is that all of our children are important to us. Our children in single-family dwelling homes are important to us. Our children in multifamily dwellings are important to us. But when we think about the fact that we want to keep all children as close as we can to their home school, we find that there's a corridor of where most of those multifamily dwellings are. Now, once upon a time, it was okay with our Department of Justice if we had children from our multifamily dwellings to be able to be picked up. We call that enclaves or satellites or islands of those students were being picked up, and then we could place those students around the district in order to have the diversity that we may have been, that we knew we needed to have in our school districts. There's been a shift in that the Department of Justice does not want us to have enclaves of children being picked up and sent to schools far distances or some distances from their home. So when you look at where most of those multifamily dwellings are, and in order to keep those children closest to their home school and not pick them up in pockets and move them, thus much of the explanation for why 3 of those schools look heavily poverty. By the way, I know you will agree with this, we love every child. We love every child. The kid that comes out of that single family home, that child that comes out of multifamily, that child that's white, that child that's black, that child that's whatever ethnicity, we love all of our children. We're going to embrace them. When they come to us, they're ours. And we're going to do the very best we can for those. Okay? Right? So some ideas we considered aren't all very good. And I wanted to just share this lastly with you to say, for anyone who thinks that we just simply embraced everything that was said to us by the plaintiffs in this pending litigation, that's not true. There were some very unattractive options on the table that nobody forced on us, but they were conversations and they were possibilities. And one of those considerations was, well, maybe we need to close 1 or 2 schools and shift populations around. We didn't see that. We weren't in favor of that. We had a situation where in an earlier design and plan, Simmons Middle School was going to be split off with those students leaving the middle school at the 8th grade headed to 2 different high schools. Some of those students would be going to Hoover High School and some of those students to Spain Park. And when we met with the Department of Justice and LDF on January the 28th, which by the way, they have continued to say to us, this is your plan. You need to meet the obligations of the court, but this is your plan, being very thoughtful about their expectations and their criteria. But when we got to the table with them on January the 28th, I think my conversation for my staff and others who were in that room went something like this. We are too smart not to figure this out. We do not want our Simmons Middle School students getting to the 8th grade and all of a sudden being split out to 2 different high schools. We respected the fact that you said, hey, keep our students in the feeder zone, and we've worked very hard to do that. So we also had conversations about delaying this into 2017-18. I continue to hear that. I know that there are those in the room who perhaps believe that that's in the best interest of the school district. I don't know that it's any more palatable this time next year, or if it's just a whole nother year of the stress and the strain and the anxiety and the challenges that come with just pushing a decision out as long as you can push it. The fact of the matter is, we're going to rezone. And we can own this and we can craft and develop this plan, or then frankly the courts could do that for us should they so choose to do so. So delaying may not be a great option. I'll bet you're going to have questions about grandfathering, and so I won't get into any great detail, but if you have those questions, we're going to pop back over to this slide. I'm going to just bet you may have some questions about transportation, and if you do, we're going to pop back over to this particular slide. But one thing I just have to say is there have been some questions about, okay, if you're going to have more routes, then this is going to cost us more money. How does that make sense? And we have dug into the data and into the research, and at this point in time, we're pleased to share with you that there will be a savings to our school district. So even though you may have more routes, those routes are shorter distances. Because those are shorter distances, we may be able to double routes. So rather than this proposal costing us money, we see about a $666,000 savings to the school district based on this plan. I'm pleased to tell you that there is not a single child that will be on a bus further than 7.6 miles is the longest distance any child will be on a bus in our school district for this particular proposed plan. Okay? Some other things, if you want us to talk transportation, we'll be prepared to share this slide. Building transition, we just want you to know that this is big. We want you to know that we're being thoughtful about how do we move, how do we transition our school district and our children, and so we can pop back to these particular overheads if you'd like for us to. And then we've had questions about, well, if it was not for all of the school employees having their children in the schools and taking all the seats of our children, those of us who are paying taxes, this wouldn't be an issue for us. And so if you want to talk about that, we will, because what we can tell you is that only 1.6% of the seats in the school district are being taken up by school district employees who live out of district. And I'll just make this one statement, and then if you want to come back to this, we will. I really want our teachers to be all in. Wherever my child goes to school is where my heart is. If my child is in the school district with me, I'm much more likely to get to school on time and be there, stay after school if I'm needed, to attend events or to have an after-school parent conference. It makes sense for us to embrace that thought, and we have as a school district. We've not let people pick which school they wanted to send their child to. In many cases, we've said to them, we don't have the capacity for your child who's out of district to go to that school, but we could put your school in your child in another school. So this is not hugely burdening our school district, and if you want to talk about that, we will. And at this point, I know you want me to zip it and you want me to sit down because you're anxious to come to the microphone, and I'll be glad to do that. Again, I want to ask first, if you're in this community, Brock's Gap Intermediate School, South Shades Crest, Deer Valley, I'd really love for us to defer first to those in this community with an opportunity for others to be able to share and be heard this evening. We may not be able to answer all your questions. We may say thank you for that comment. Let us do more research. Let us do more study. We have a lot of people here who've invested a lot of time and energy. Many of them did research on different parts of this process, and so very well you'll hear from all of us. And so at this time, yes sir, Mr. Sweeney.
If you would allow me just to make one statement that Judge Hackler said was important. important for us to address. It's the following statement. Hoover shall make clear at the scheduled community meetings that although it is continuing to confer with the United States and the private plaintiffs, neither the United States nor the private plaintiffs have consented to Hoover's plan. To comply with that request, I wanted to make sure everyone knows that. One of the reasons they haven't done that is because we committed to them that at these community meetings, we reserve the right to listen to the input from the community and reserve the right to make changes that fit the criteria that we've agreed to on how best to achieve appropriate desegregation. The other point I wanted just to amplify, at no time have LDF or the Justice Department ever approved of any plan that created a disproportionate burden on minority students. When it became evident to them that the satellite or non-contiguous zones that we had used in order to achieve satisfactory diversity in our schools was creating a disproportionate burden on minorities. At that point, that became an issue that we had to resolve. And as I said recently to the court, we wanted to resolve that. Hoover wanted to make sure that there was not a disproportionate burden on African American students. And so part of the criteria that we've used to design this plan is to keep that in mind.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Okay. Our community here. Microphones on either side of the room.
Good evening. My name is Christy Heitch. I live about 6 driveways from the school here in Lake Cyrus. I have a 7-year-old first grader at Deer Valley Elementary School and a 4-year-old who will be moving up in the system. And I apologize if you have addressed this. The live feed went down and I wasn't able to attend. We're overall happy with the plan. We're excited to go to the school. South Shades Crest is actually closer to our house than Deer Valley is, so it's more of a community school for our Lake Cyrus neighborhood. Our concern is that my daughter being a first grader at Deer Valley this year, would go to South Shades Crest next year, and then Brock's Gap for the 3rd year. So I guess that would fall under the grandfathering of the current first graders. And I'll lay out my concerns and then have a seat. The second one is the transportation situation. The consideration for running buses for all of Lake Cyrus. South Shades Crest is not set up to handle a high volume of automobile traffic. It's just not, there's not access points to get in and out of the school. And then younger children and playground facility here at Brock's Gap if it's going to become a 3 through 5 school. So I appreciate your hard work. It does look like neighborhood schools in contiguous sectors, and I appreciate y'all's hard work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let me address your last statement first. There are several things that will happen at the school. One is that we will make sure that we get the playground in place for the school. We also will need to have a covered awning, a covered walkway, at least one entrance into our building. And we're also being thoughtful about, we have lockers in this building, and how well does that work, and how do we accommodate them in terms of book bags and jackets and that sort of thing. So we are very cognizant of some things that will need to be addressed as it relates to this particular building. In terms of grandfathering, so since that question came up, and there could be others in the room related to grandfathering, let me just run through this real quickly and see if this helps us. Any rising high school students, so if you're a current 8th grader through a current 11th grader at this point, those students may remain at their high schools if they choose. Now, why the 8th graders? How unfair would it be to get to that 8th grade assuming that you're going to Hoover High or Spain Park for that matter, only to be told at the end of your 8th grade year that's not your high school. So we wanted to be thoughtful of those students. Any child who has 1 year remaining at his or her current school may remain at that school if they choose, specifically our first graders, our fourth graders, and our seventh graders. And then grandfathering in lower grades, first, fourth, and seventh would be for 1 year only. Okay, so the grandfathering is 1 year only. Younger siblings who have more than 1 year of school at a specific campus will not be grandfathered for all those years. The new enrollees to our system have to fall under the new plan. They do not get to choose 1 year anywhere. Our families who choose grandfathering will not be eligible for transportation, and that one's pretty simple. Very difficult to run buses to those who are choosing to grandfather at the same time we're running buses to the new rezoning plan. There will be a deadline for you to choose if you want to get grandfather, and it can't be a last minute thing. We need to be thoughtful about this, give you time, give you a chance to get to those schools, go in those schools, see those schools, meet those principals, have some orientation. But we very clearly are going to have a deadline by which people need to declare, and that one's pretty simple too, because we got to plan for staffing. And so that timeline would be there. And so we'll have that procedure in place for how you would go about grandfathering. Maybe that helps in some of other questions that you might have. Anybody else in this? See, there was a third piece to that. Transportation. Yes, we have gotten a waiver from the State Department of Education. The rule is if you're within a 2 mile of the school that you are not entitled to transportation. We've requested a waiver from the State Department because to a great extent the traffic, South Shade sitting right in a neighborhood. We've been granted that waiver, and we're certainly willing to reach back out to the State Department for a waiver. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I have a child who is seriously ill and has significant medical and educational needs.
Can I get you to give us your name?
Victoria Atlanta. Attending this wonderful IEP team between South Shades Crescent and Brock's Gap. From last December, the plan for his transition in Brock's Gap this year. We have significant planning now to do transition in Columbus. However, his team needs all the information in place to be able to start this plan immediately. Another factor in this is that our son's been in the hospital every other week for months. We need to know when your plans are going to be finalized, specifically for staffing, so we have the right people involved so we can start catching up on this transition plan. We also need to know, I would like to know, what the district office is going to be doing to offer support to the administration, our special ed teachers, school nurses, and the students and parents who are in difficult situations that are going to cause the transition to be difficult this late in the stage.
Thank you. I would encourage you, if you would contact, or we can get Dr. Barbara Mayer to contact you. Certainly, we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our children, and we'll do all that we can to make sure that we're supporting that transition. But I'm going to share your name, and if you could give us contact information, I would like for Dr. Mayer to... Okay. We will get that for you, and we'll talk to Dr. Mayer, and we'll make sure that we're being thoughtful about your child and other children with any particular needs they might have. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
I am Heather Goss. I am the president this year at Deer Valley Elementary School of the PTO, and I'm also a Lake Cyrus resident. And I'm just going to speak from my personal point of view. I was upset at first to leave Deer Valley because I would hope that Dr. Richardson and Mrs. Weems would take my children all the way through 12th grade. But since that's not an option, I thought about this proposal and realized that for us, and for those of us who live in Lake Cyrus, this is really just the best possible scenario for us. To have a school that is a K-2 school, I came from a town where that was how it was handled, is such a unique experience for those kids who will be in that school. It's age-centric. They can focus on their library resources and all of their other resources to 3 grades. When you have a science room in a library that has to accommodate 6 grades, your resources are spread thin. So I think for our kids who get to experience a K-2 school and then a true secondary elementary school, that's a benefit. Also, I think although I would love for my kid to be in the Deer Valley bubble, which is truly a unique bubble, having a transition period before they go to junior high is, I think, beneficial too. So as a Lake Cyrus property owner and parent, I certainly hope that the board hears me that we are in favor of this proposal, and thank you for doing and allowing our kids to have a unique experience. And I hope South Shades Press will get to experience and feel that way too, because it's going to be great for those children who experience that. So good job, and you've got my vote.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate that, and she does bring up a number of great points of how unique this opportunity will be for our children in this community. So thank you for that. Yes, ma'am.
I am Autumn Jill. I live here in Lake Cyrus, right a few houses down the street from the school. I'm a parent with 2 boys, one that can be grandfathered and one that can't. I have comments and then a few questions. And I have notes, just so I won't get off track. And I'm reading my note that turns swing just that said in the presentation some reasonable time, so I'll try to finish. First, I just want to tell you as a parent and an educator as well, and as a little bit of a voice for Lake Cyrus, that we truly, truly appreciate all the research that you all have done, all of the studies, all of the collaboration with the Department of Justice and other agencies that you guys have worked with. It means so much because we've been following this since spring as well. And this just blew our minds. We were nervous. We felt like Lake Cyrus couldn't catch a break here lately with things in the city, crime, and just other stuff. But this kind of put a bright light on our neighborhood for us. So we truly appreciate that. Change is hard, and we're being changed, but we're okay with that change. And we appreciate, again, what you've done to help us help the pain of the change. So that's first. So thank you again. A few questions for you all. I'm glad to hear the framework isn't going to be uprooted. I will tell you that's a fear of ours in Lake Cyrus, that after other neighborhoods speak, that everybody will go back to the drawing board and something will happen to our neighborhood. So that was very comforting for me to hear you say that, Dr. Murphy, that that's not going to happen. The first question is, a few of them have been asked already. Resources, as it relates to turning, and we know that Rock's Gap couldn't be a K-5 just by the nature of the way it was built. Making us K-5 on 2 different campuses, and I'll let the questions out there first and let you answer. I'm sure there's thought or have conversations started about the playground resources, other teaching resources that are needed here to make this still an elementary school. We know that intermediate is still elementary. So are you all having conversations with the administrators between the 2 campuses about resources that we will need here at Rock's Gap? Collaboration. Is there going to be ongoing collaboration amongst the administrators at South Shades Press here? Because we're on 2 different campuses, will they still have a jointed vision for our children? We don't want K2 to have one vision and 3-5 to have another vision as it relates to teaching and learning, academics, even PTO. Will there be a joint PTO or 2 different PTOs on 2 different campuses? And again, we're still K5, just in 2 different areas. So will there be conversations between the administration regarding things of that nature and our parents? Busing, it has been asked. That was my question about busing. And I wrote a note standing here. Will there be conversations about what grade levels or on what floor? I know my mind tells me 3rd, 4th, 5th, but is there going to be some other type of vertical makeup here? And thank you. On behalf of Lake Cyrus, oh my gosh, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jeter. Let me share with you that I am already aware that Kara Scholl and Scott Mitchell have already started their conversations, and they've shared both briefly with me. I think it's fair to say the enthusiasm that they're bringing to sharing and talking with each other. To the extent that there's a question related about PTO, I think your leadership is going to have to talk about whether it's important to have a leadership team from parents from both, but maybe a liaison or something that works between the two. I'm certainly sure that you all can work through that. But I can tell you that I am so proud of our principals across the board who are already being thoughtful about what this might look like, what this might feel like. We are intent to make whatever the eventual plan is as seamless and as painless as possible. We are already giving thought to how we would provide orientations for our students, how we would hold open house for our children and get them in and let them walk and let them feel and meet and be greeted by the administrators and teachers in schools. That's so critically important. We don't want any child walking in a building scared to death, frightened. I do find this to frequently be true. Just being a mother, sometimes my child is much more resilient with the change than I am. But we want our parents and our children to feel very comfortable with this process. I wanted to ask Ron Dotson if he would just talk a little bit about the state's expectation for buildings and what children could be on what floors, and talk a little bit. I'm going to ask him to mention this. Why South Shades Crest K2 and why this school 3-5? So Ron, would you do that?
As we looked at this particular area, there were unique challenges and opportunities to this side of Hoover. There's a lot of unknowns in terms of construction build out. So knowing that we had to have capacity more in this area than anywhere else was a driving concern. Also, in looking at our buildings that were here, we did, as one of the scenarios, envision Brock's Gap and South Shades Crest as two different K-5 campuses. Challenge, however, there's several challenges with that, but the main challenge is with the Brock's Gap building. This was originally a middle school, for those who are old enough to remember that. This was the original site of Robert F. Bumpus Middle School. So Scott and his team have done a great job of making it an intermediate school, and it's been a good fit for that purpose for this time. And we'll have to make further changes, as Dr. Murphy's talked about, to deal with grades 3-5. But the state has specific rules, the architectural section of the State Department of Education, when it comes to grades K1 and 2. You cannot put K1 classrooms on anything but a first floor of a building, or whatever the floor that discharges directly out of the building. That's to be able to evacuate those small ones as quickly as possible if there were an emergency. Second grade can't be more than one floor above or below that discharge floor. And also, if you look at your size of your classrooms, we typically have smaller class ratio in the youngest grade levels. So you have to have more classrooms in the bottom areas of the building for the same grades as you would have in the upper part of the building. If Brock's Gap were a K-5 school, we would have, we just do the math, we would have had a lot of empty space on the third floor, which in this building, that's actually where I think most of the classrooms are. And so it would have left a lot of empty, dark space here. We've never been able to reach the capacity of this building. We also struggled with reaching groups of students that were mutually agreeable to the parties in the suit and in this particular area. So trying to create contiguous boundaries for those two different schools was a real challenge. And by putting them together and running the numbers that way, it was voila, this works. Knowing as we look at South Shades Crest, architecturally, they have a 2-to-1 ratio of classrooms ground floor to second floor. So for K1-2, that will be ideal. It's almost like it was designed that way. And the schools will obviously, knowing Kara and Scott, they're going to work together very, very closely.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jeter. Yes, sir.
Hi. My name is Nadeem Siddiqui. My eldest son goes to Deer Valley School, and before coming to Birmingham, we were living in Montreal, Canada, and we did a lot of research before moving to Birmingham, and we did a lot of research on the internet, like regarding the rating of the school, and we found Deer Valley School. Well, the rating on the internet was 10 out of 10. We came here, we bought the house, and we live in the Lake Cyrus community now. And we're very proud that we are sending our son to Deer Valley. So I would like to ask a question over here is Hoover School Department, why you people like at Shades Crest and Trace Crossing Elementary and Deer Valley Elementary and Shades Crest Elementary and Trace Crossings Elementary, why elementary schools within the same Hoover School Department has a different rating? What is the criteria of the rating? Why a Deer Valley school is 10 out of 10 and Trace Crossing is 2 out of 10 and Shades Elementary is 4 out of 10, I think, on the internet and on a couple of websites. So what are we missing in these elementary schools? I will eventually, whatever the decision of the Hoover School Department will be, my son will go over there, but I have a concern why the rating is so down of these schools, of the elementary schools. This is my concern. And the second thing is, like, since my son is going for the last 1 year, he has an emotional connection with the school and with the teachers over there, and the way they are brought him up. Are we going to get the same satisfaction over there in the St. Crest Elementary School too? Thank you.
I'm delighted to tell you that there's nothing wrong with any of the elementary schools in Hoover City. And one of the interesting things about those ratings is that people can become disgruntled and go out there with others, and just like going to a hotel and you're not satisfied and you get you and all your family to go out there and respond and answer, and that data can get out there and get very skewed if people become unhappy for whatever reason. I didn't like how discipline was handled with my child or whatever. And so, you know, I think the best measuring stick for our elementary schools and for our school district is get out there and just see how great they are. It does not take me as a superintendent going out to any rating anywhere to know that there are excellent and great schools, elementary, middle school, intermediate, secondary, across the school district. And I would just say this: we are all blessed to be in the Hoover City schools. Folks who connect and care with children. I don't think wherever your child might go that you'll have to be concerned that there will be anything other than embracing, nurturing, loving, supporting environment for your child, regardless of the elementary school. And again, there are excellent schools throughout the school district, and without exception, there is no single negative, bad school in the school district. Okay? Did we answer your question? I think you were concerned emotionally and about the rating. I believe we got those. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Hey, my name is Heather Smith, and I live at Stars. Basically, I just wanted to come up and say thank you so much, because we moved to Lake Stars this past summer. I had no idea about any of the rezoning issues or anything of that nature, because we were from Vestavia. And just moved over and practically chose this area for Deer Valley. So it was a great school. The rezoning, I am a million myself. Not be happier. My child will be blessed in all way when he comes here next year. So thank you. I just wanted to come and thank you.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate your comments. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Angela Roberts, and I live here in the Lake Cyrus community. I started in Hoover as a student teacher at South Shades Crest, and even though my family lives in Georgia, chose to move to Birmingham to teach at South Shades Crest, and I was there for 8 years before I had my own kids who are now in the system, and I became involved in a different way as an active PTO board member and volunteer at the schools. I am really excited about the changes that we have ahead for our side of the city. This plan has really unfolded in a way that I'm excited about. I don't personally have a high schooler. My kids are in 2nd and 5th grade currently, but a neighbor asked me to ask about the capacity of Hoover High School with the continued growth that's happening on our side of the city and Hoover High School being as full as it is now. How do you expect to deal with that as it unfolds?
Great question. We realize that this plan does not throw any pixie dust on Hoover High School in terms of a fix and a remedy to what is 90% utilization and capacity. Even though there were some changes between numbers of students between the two high schools, I believe the final number ended up being about 37 students less at Hoover High School, give or take, less than 50 student difference. What we have been able to create in this plan, however, is giving us a little more capacity in the elementary and the middle schools on the west side of the city. I certainly realize as your superintendent that we're going to need to give some serious thought really, really soon to what now, particularly at the secondary level. Is it time for us to be thoughtful about a third high school? Is it time for us to think about adding size to Hoover High School? And so, thank you. You gave me a little glimpse into what you were thinking. But we, as in I and the board, are already being very thoughtful about what are our next steps, because we realize this plan does not remedy, or just to use a good Southern term, just doesn't fix all of the challenges that we have at the secondary level. So we're being proactive, I believe, even as we speak, in trying to plan forward for our high school and secondary students. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Karen Bird, and I'm a resident of Lake Cyrus, and I have a second grader at Wood Valley, and she absolutely loves Wood Valley. And this morning we had a conversation because she asked me was she changing schools, and I haven't spoken with her about that. And I told her before we react, we're going to get the facts. And so I'm just coming here just knowing that Rock's Gap is going to be a warm and loving school. I have that expectation, just as I have that expectation with you now, and it didn't, let us down. But I had some questions concerning, I know that you guys, everybody that's involved has had a lot to deal with and a lot of things to consider. What other options were available or are available besides rezoning? I know that we're going with rezoning, but what other things were on the table? And also, my question was also if the principal, the current principal and assistant principals were going to remain at the school. And I think that has already been answered, that they are remaining. And those are my only two questions about the principal and what the options on the table besides rezoning.
As it relates to being under pending litigation with the courts, under a desegregation court order that dates all the way back to, I believe, 1965 or 66, there are no other options. So rezoning is one of those things that we can either embrace and find ways to make this best and palatable to us as a community, or we could take a sitting posture, and I'm going to look at our attorney who can correct me if I get it wrong, or we could take a sitting posture on this and the courts will rezone for us. So we're trying to be thoughtful and proactive, and I know that the court would bring a big heart to the conversation, but I don't believe that the court will bring as big a heart as we're bringing to this. This is our community, and we need to develop this plan in best fashion for us and try to find ways that we are in compliance with the expectations of the court, while at the same time we're serving our constituents and our children in best fashion. There was no other option. We are going to have to come out from under this desegregation court order, and it's something we want to come out from under this desegregation court order. We want to get it right because it's the right thing for all children, and our commitment is let us design the plan. We really don't need you to design it for us and hand it to us. Did I say that okay, Mr. Sweeney?
Very well.
Thank you. Did we answer your question? Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Joanne Brazil. I do not live in Lake Cyrus. I live in Russet Woods, and my kids go to South Shades Crest. I have 2 third graders and one that will be in kindergarten in a year. I have some concerns and some questions. Number one, I just want to ask about the students identified for attendance zone changes. Under our school, it says that there are 197 students. I think that number might be wrong. If second and third grade is changing to Brock's Gap, should they not be counted?
We don't count.
We didn't count, they were not counted? Okay. So the number's really closer to 400 students out of our school of 603 students. 400 will change schools. Correct. Okay? That seems like a lot. I'm also concerned about the western growth, like everyone is on the western side of the school. South Shades Crest, 2-lane road, lots of neighborhoods. It's built out. They just built homes in South Point. That's the last that is slated to be built along South Shades Crest. There's nothing in the future, but there is in the future Ross Bridge and Trace Crossings and Lake Cyrus. I'm a little concerned that our students are getting caught up in this to make room for future growth, that we moved into an established community for this reason. I know that you mentioned that South Shades Crest seemed like they were set up for a K-2 school, and first and kindergartners needed to be on the first floor. Is that why Deer Valley was not considered to be the school that gets split in half? Are they not equipped for that? I'm asking if they have, I looked on the map today, and they have 3 areas of future growth areas in Ross Bridge. And so with those, with the changes in Lake Cyrus, the new homes, right now, Deer Valley in 2007 had close to 800 students. By 2011, they had 917. When you took the 5th grade out, there were 775. Currently, without the 5th grade, there are 900 students. I understand that some multifamily dwellings will be taken away. I understand that Lake Cyrus is not in that number. But with all of those future growths, I feel like Deer Valley is going to fill up rather quickly. It filled up within 3 years, it increased by 200 students. I'm concerned for my children, especially my younger one, that in a couple years, we're going to be back at the drawing board because they're going to be full again. This is not, we are more than welcoming to anyone from Lake Cyrus or Trace Crossings. If this is how it goes down, we open arms. We are so excited, and we want our kids to be friends, and this is nothing personal in that way. But as a parent, if I lived in Trace Crossings, I would be very upset that I stayed in that school and then we're going to move 70% of their homeowners out of their neighborhood school that's named Trace Crossings. Greystone goes to Greystone. River Chase goes to River Chase. Deer Valley goes to Deer Valley. South Shades Crest goes to South Shades Crest. Trace should go to Trace Crossing. And I'm not opposed to that. Those are my comments. I'm curious as to how the idea came up to split South Shades Crest. I've heard rumors about the DOJ that this was their idea. I would like someone to address that and kind of give me the history of how that happened.
Ms. Brazel, is that correct?
Brazil.
Ms. Brazil. Just to tell you a little bit, I've lived in this community for almost 25 years. I had children that went to, before there was a South Shades Crest, before there was a Trace Crossings, before there were any of these schools out here. We had Hoover High School maybe. So I understand about the change. I understand about moving. My son, when I first moved out here, went to Bluff Park. So, you know, that just gives you some perspective of what happens over time. A lot of thought and consideration went into these considerations. And, you know, in response to some of your questions, the Department of Justice didn't come in here and say, you need to split these 2 schools. What they did say was, you need to be able to have capacity within your schools for the growth that you can see in your community, and we looked at ways to make that happen. Deer Valley has the growth that's still to happen. They've got some large apartment complexes that are at the end of the Deer Valley, of the Ross Bridge development, that they need to have the capacity for. On this side, on this end of town, going down South Shades Crest Road, there's new development that's going to happen down by Wood Highlands. Wood Highlands, is that right? Near Highway 52. Right now, those people don't have any, the only place for them to come to school is to come up towards South Shades Crest and Brock's Gap, because there's no road that connects through, on the backside, through Stadium Trace. So there is some more growth that's going to happen on that end of town. So we did take that into consideration as well. I think some construction's already started. The city has been very generous with sharing with us the number of houses that are zoned are on the table to be built by different areas. We can then take the number of houses, number of apartments, everything they have, they shared with us. We then apply yield rates to those and can judge when we would think optimally we'd reach capacity in those schools. So those things were considered when we were looking at where to move the populations.
One of the things that our community asked us to be thoughtful about is give thought to the growth and plan for that growth so that we don't have to come back to the table in a year or two and have to rezone again. If indeed we don't plan for that growth and we don't leave space in some of our schools for that growth, we're going to be back to this table sooner rather than later trying to rezone again. So if we don't leave that space, we're going to again have to start picking up children, not having that contiguous zone that is an expectation from the court. We're going to start having those enclaves again, satellites, children being picked up and moved, and we're going to have to come back to this table because even though we may acquire unitary status, there'll be a watchful eye to make sure that we don't revert back to doing some things that basically the court does not see to be favorable to all children. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Ashley Sutherland, and I'm a fifth grader at Brock Gap and third grader at Deer Valley. And I just want to say thank you so much for the thought and effort that went into this plan. We are so thrilled with the way that it's going to work out. And I think my question is, the former teacher in me, and we're getting fifth grade back, and our library doesn't have fifth grade books anymore. That's a lot of classrooms coming back. And then when I left my school, when I was teaching, I only got to take some items that I had personally purchased. I don't think Rock Scat needs 25 sets of fifth grade and supplies. Are those going to get to move back? Or I'm also a PTO member, or are we going to be funding these classrooms and having to help the libraries supply all these items? Because Tracy's going to be in that situation, and then so is Deer Valley.
Thank you. We tried to be thoughtful about that as we've talked about the building transition. We certainly want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students, getting the appropriate library books, meeting the other expectations and needs of our students. And, so in our transition plan, I'm going to just take a minute to run through that, even though all this may not fit your exact conversation. We're going to have our principals helping us to determine the number of classroom moves from and to their respective buildings. Our principals will help provide an inventory of furniture and equipment needs that's based on the changes in their student and teacher populations. Needs will be assessed and decisions made regarding moving furniture, equipment between schools and/or purchase of new items if necessary. A master moving plan will be developed with a start date on or about May 27, with a completion date in July 22nd. A formal bid for helping us do moving services will occur with our board's approval, of course, hopefully in May. New items will be ordered with delivery dates to coordinate with specifically delivery dates based on our master moving plan. Our teachers will be provided moving boxes, supplies. Our moving schedule will be coordinated with our principals. Textbooks, library books, and other instructional supplies will be moved between schools as will be appropriate. Renovations to our lunchroom, serving lines, bathrooms, any other areas will be scheduled as a part of our master moving plan. And construction of the playground that we've already mentioned here at Brock's Gap will be developed along with the construction of an outside awning. And whatever other things that we see need to be done to best serve the children who are in that building, that will happen.
Thank you. And again, principals are going to have a busy summer. I know, of course, they only get claimed till about the middle of July. And we were hoping that we'd be able to get parents in to help. So I think as soon as we can get that, it'd be great so that there's going to be a lot of moving going on.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We appreciate that, Ashley. Yes, ma'am.
Real tall, so I'm Shannon Trotter, and I live in South Point, and I have 2 daughters, both at South Shades Crest currently, and they will actually be both bucking up to Brock's Gap. I'll tell you thank you too, like everybody said, I appreciate everything you've done, and if I could stay at South Shades Crest, I would. I love Dr. Scholl and Miss Williams, but I've met Scott, and guess what? I'm going to love him too. So the concern, or I have 2 points to make that will kind of come together for my concern. Number one, with the school splitting, and I know Scott's school is really an intermediate, so I'm not sure that he has the money or the funding that elementary schools have.
He told me to say that.
You set that up.
Okay.
We'll talk tomorrow.
But my concern is with that funding piece, I mean, I just want to be assured from you all that because my child is going to a school now that's split, that they're going to have the same resources and the same funding that Deer Valley has at K through 5 and that Trace has at K through 5. I am selfishly going to tell you that I am the fundraising person, Katie and I, at South Shades Crest. We bring in a whole lot of money, and it goes to do special things for our kids. And so with the schools being split, I'm worried that I've got 3 grades here and I've got 3 grades at South Shades Crest. I'm worried that the money is not going to be there, and I just want your assurances that we'll have a reading coach, we'll have math coaches, we'll have the enrichment. I want my children, I want to know that they're going to have every single thing that the other schools have, because again, I don't know that the funding from CPO is going to be there like it is now.
Wow. Put me on the spot, make me make promises about personnel. No, it's a fine question. It is. I want to say it this way, and we're Hoover, and we're going to stay Hoover. We are going to meet the needs of our students, and we're going to provide the resources that we need. We've talked about budgets and the complexities of budgets, and I think that we also understand that while we're going to be very thoughtful about budgets, we're going to be more thoughtful about serving children and getting this plan to work for all of us. And so my commitment to you is that we're going to make this work. We're going to provide the staff and the support and the resources that we need. Can I tell you that you thought we needed 5 people and there were only 4? I can't promise you that level of conversation, but we have no interest in whatsoever of having Hoover be anything less than the excellent Hoover it already is, and just making it even greater. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. May I interrupt you to say that a parent came to me immediately after our presentation last Thursday night and said, "Hey, what about?" And it was one of those, moments of, we just missed that. That makes sense. So again, that was a parent question that was just a no-brainer that those children should be grandfathered. So we are listening, and I think that's the right thing to do. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi there, I'm Katie Holland, and notice Scott brought it way down for me. I have several questions. The first one, I think at our first community meeting, I brought up traffic concerns on South Shades Crest. I do have additional traffic concerns this time. Our dear friends at South Point leave their house by 7 in the morning to get to our house get to school by 7:45. Now we have hundreds of friends from Trace Crossings that are now going to also be on South Shades Crest, as well as you have me trying to leave South Shades Crest and now get to a second school again by 7:45. So while I agree that we need buses, My second question, will there be 2 buses? So my kindergartner will get on one bus and my third grader will get on a second bus? Or is one bus dropping off at 2 schools? So that is one of my concerns. My second concern is why are you splitting one school out of the whole district into 2 schools? And could you explain the benefits of this?
Yeah, we talked about the problems that we had in this particular area and the architectural issues with this building not being able to be an effective K-5 building. But I do see definite advantages curriculum-wise even to having the K2 and the 3-5, the primary and the intermediate split there, and the ability to focus on that. The 2 schools will share accountability. The way the state works, whenever you have, because K1 and 2 does not participate in state testing, grades 3, 4, 5 does, and the way the state interprets that, any school that feeds into one that has testing inherits the test data. So these 2 schools will be accountable to the same expectations in terms of curriculum. So they're going to have to coordinate together instruction-wise to do that. So we have looked at K2, 3, 5 possibilities at other times throughout the evolution of the school district. And every time you look at it from the standpoint, sometimes there are structural reasons that point you in that direction. And sometimes it will solve one problem, but it may create 2 or 3 others. In this particular scenario, at least from what we've seen so far, there seem to be a lot of advantages in having these 2 work together as almost as, if you think of the 2 as one school, it's the largest zone in the district, has the potential of being the largest zone in the district, and being able to absorb that capacity there.
Okay, so just to be clear, are there proven benefits of a K through 2 versus a 3 through 5, or was it only strictly done for building purposes?
I don't know that you could argue that any grade configuration has proven benefits over another. Where you have good leadership, good teachers, good resources, you're going to have good learning going on. So that's the magic secret sauce, so to speak, to having any successful school.
Yeah, I guess my concern is why would someone buy my $400,000 house when they can go to Deer Valley and buy a $400,000 house there and have their kindergartner and second grader together? I have full faith in Scott and Dr. Schull on what we can do. My concern is someone moving into the area wouldn't know them and wouldn't know the benefit that they could get, I guess. So I was looking for, I guess, more.
Okay.
Your concerns on traffic are certainly well warranted, and that is a question that we have already begun asking on the buses. In fact, we discussed it at length the other day. Our goal is to have maximum efficiency both for our buses, but especially for our parents and our children. We want children on buses as short amount of time as possible. We want the least amount of traffic possible. So I can assure you that we're looking at every possibility that would let students get to school in between the 2 schools, particularly for families. And I'm a person who had 4 children, so I'm right there with you with those concerns. So we ask that you let us plot those routes and see what we're going to do. But believe me, we are already on that one.
And last one, I promise. My next question is just to reiterate what Shannon was saying. We, as far as science labs, we have people from Trace that have great science labs. I would like to see those replicated here. We have, my daughter reads on a lower reading level. I'd like to see a reading coach, at least one here. I guess, I know you already talked about books, but I would hate for half the books of South Shades Crest to be here and then my kindergarten be left with minimal books there. So just, if y'all can just look at the budgets and see if you can help, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, my name is Casey Ritchie, and I live here in Lake Cyrus. I currently have a first grader at Hoover Valley, and
Thank you, Casey. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Tashawn Matthews. I have 3 children. I currently have a 2nd grader at Trace Crossings. I have a 9th grader at the high school, and my oldest child graduated from Hoover High School. I want to thank you guys for doing what is probably the most difficult thing to do, is to try to please everybody that has a school-aged child in the city. So for that, my heart goes out to Dr. Murphy, the staff, and everything that you have to endure as you embrace the community each day. As I've said before, the tone and atmosphere of these meetings is very pleasing. I missed the one earlier this week, but I did get to listen to it that night around midnight, and I was very pleased to hear the presentation along with the comments. So I want to thank you for maintaining a tone of respect and for hearing everybody and the atmosphere that's in this room tonight as well as Monday night. I really feel like children are the priority here, and that everybody not only has their own child's best interest at heart, but I'm here because I want to hear what this community area says about how the plan is affecting them. And the first few people that got up, they're so excited about this plan, and they're thanking you, and they're saying, this is what my community area needs. Well, I will tell you that my family uprooted from Tuscaloosa, where school state grades were in the C's, and we picked Hoover as our community because we looked at that state report card and we said, wow, Hoover City Schools is rocking. We want to be there. We moved from Tuscaloosa and we moved to South Shades Crest. I lived in the Oak Crest subdivision. I had to leave no later than 7:15 or 7:20 to get my child to South Shades Crest on time. The bus came at 7:05. So don't miss the bus. You're going to be late to school, because the bus could not even get to school on time. My child got on the bus at Oak Crest, first they went down to the Woodlands, down 52. Then they passed the house again, passed South Shades Crest, went all the way to Galleria Woods, and then brought my child to school sometimes at 7:50 and 7:55, because it took that long for the bus to get through the same traffic that I would have got to get through. So I understand that traffic is a concern, but after my child did 2 years at South Shades Crest, I said, I cannot take this traffic on South Shades Crest. We gave up housekeepers, we made budgetary sacrifices, and we said, we're moving to Scout Creek. Guess why? I got 2 ways to get out of my neighborhood. I don't have to worry about traffic. Well, guess what? Most mornings, what happens if you live in Scout Creek? You're sitting there because people are flying down from South Shades Crest down Brock's Gap, and I have to cut cars off to get my child to Trace Crossings, which I don't have a bus for, because I'm under the 2-mile zone. I have to drive my child not only to the high school, my 9th grader, I have to get my other child there, and everybody else is coming through that road. It's like a thoroughfare, a grand parkway, if you will, and it's only a 2-lane road. So to say that we have buses to bus our children is a joke, because if you've got a 5, 6, 7-year-old, they don't want to get on the bus. It intimidates them every day. Sometimes even in the carpool line, there are kids that don't want to leave their parents. And as a parent, you're not going to throw your child on a bus. And if it's raining, they're not going to stand out there and wait on the bus. And neither are you going to let your child sit out there and stand on the bus. So on a rainy day, I have to leave Scout Creek, which is a 2-minute drive to Trace, no later than 7:20, or my child is late to Trace. And if you look at the tardiness at Trace Crossings, it is people that live on Brock's Gap, because there's no way to get to that school. There's no way for a bus to get to that school if they did get picked up in the neighborhood. The traffic is a nightmare. And now we're going to bring people from Chase Lake and other parts of the area who are going to drive their kids to school too, and we're going to flood that area even more. So my concern as a Trace resident, I think you guys do an excellent job. Kudos to the teachers and the administrators at these schools, because I think my child will be great at whatever school they're at in Hoover. That's why we picked it. But my concern here is really the traffic. We have got to get with the city council folks, and we have got to make some changes with these roads. They cannot handle the population we have in town. And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. If there are those who are outside of this community that want to have a forum, we are certainly feel free to come to the microphone also. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that observation. Thank you for the suggestion. And, you know, at the current time, our board has approved the school district calendar, but your point is well taken, and I appreciate you sharing it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lori Westoven. I have 2 third graders at South Shades Crest and an 8th grader at Bumpus, actually. And my question is in regards to staffing, which I know is, I'm sure, still being explored at this point in time. But in the continuity of it with those 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders coming over to Brock's Gap, you have elementary schools that weren't zoned South Shades Crest that are now, so there will be children from those schools coming to Brock's Gap, as well as the current students at South Shades Crest. And I was just wondering if the continuity, so that those kids that are used to seeing those 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers currently, if that will be taken into consideration so that all of those kids have somebody that they're comfortable with, if that makes sense, where teachers are being pulled from each of the elementary schools to give them that comfort. And then secondly, I believe one of the ladies earlier had asked in regards to the administration, is it going to stay the same as well? Thank you.
Thank you. As it relates to staffing, we have a staffing meeting that is scheduled late March, and we'll be giving thought to our proposed rezoning plan, which hopefully at that point will be more definitive for us. And so every year, annually, that's when we really in earnest began to have those conversations about staffing. So very premature for me to start talking about staffing at this point. The obvious conversation I could have as it relates to staffing is that as our children move, our teachers obviously will transition as necessary and as appropriate with those students. Administratively, we have great administrators, to the extent that I could sit here and be definitive about which administrators and which assistant principals will all be exactly where. I can't do that at this point. But those staffing conversations are already scheduled for conversation, and we'll be very thoughtful. You know, this is a big elephant that we're eating, and one of the thoughts is to eat an elephant one bite at a time, and this one bite this year is rezoning, and then as we move forward, the next bite might be in terms of how we look at staffing as it aligns to our budget. But the thing that we want to do first is to get this rezoning right and support rezoning with all of the critical and necessary staffing in place.
For the far mic, we would ask you to speak directly into it. You have to get a little bit closer. Unfortunately, it's not working as efficiently as this one is.
Okay. My name is Karen Kazire, and I'm a parent with 2 children at South Shades Crest Elementary. And I want to echo what one of the other parents said. We welcome all of our new, potentially new families from Trace Crossings and Lake Cyrus to our school with open arms, absolutely. But get your nerve filled, because our traffic problem is very real, and the way it's set up now, for the majority of the people going into our school, we have to turn left off of South Shades Crest Road on the Willow Lakes. And introducing additional cars coming from Brock's Gap Parkway, they will not be turning right, so we'll have to yield right away to them. And once you get into Willow Lakes, we again have to turn left to get into the school. With all of our new residents from Lake Cyrus coming from the direction they're coming, they will also be turning right, and we'll have to yield right away to them. So I just would like for you guys to consider a traffic officer out in front of our school, because the way you're not feeling it, right? I mean, it's real. The way we have to even get out of our school, people are making illegal turns. It's very dangerous, and so I think not only an officer right there getting out of our school, but I think an officer at the Willow Lakes, South Shades, Crest Road intersections can be necessary as well.
I can address that a little bit for you. In fact, Dr. Scholl and I have met with our operations department and Rod Long, the city engineer. There'll be some structural changes to those entrances to help. We're also, as I said, plotting bus routes. We're looking at our SROs and how we can get all the help we can get in there, because we know it is a traffic debacle. I personally suggested a few sticks of dynamite to help open up some more lanes. That didn't go over well. But we know it is, and we are diligently seeking and have been for quite a while. But I feel like we're closer to a breakthrough on that now, so just give us a little bit of time, because I know it's horrific.
Hi. Hi, my name is Stacy Jackson. I'm a resident at the Preserve, and I have a 3rd grader at Gwen Elementary. I just wanted to give a little bit of insight as to how this would affect my family and what is in the best interest of my child. I moved to Alabama 16 years ago and met my husband, who lived in McCalla his entire life. We knew that we were called to adopt an older child with special needs, and in preparation, we researched where we would like to live long term. Somewhere that felt like home, that placed importance on community, that would provide a great education for our child. Somewhere that celebrated diversity, because the child we fell in love with happened to live in China. We wanted to live in a neighborhood that would be in close proximity to our daughter's school, somewhere that she wouldn't have to ride a bus, as it is difficult for her to navigate the stairs, and being assigned to a special bus would reinforce negative beliefs as a result of being different. We chose to move to Hoover, and we live in a neighborhood within walking distance of Gwen Elementary and Simmons Middle School. We have been beyond pleased with Gwen Elementary, where our daughter has attended 1st through 3rd grades. And even though she walks with crutches, she does not like to be treated any differently than any other children. She has, on a couple of occasions, insisted on walking from her school across the street to our neighborhood. She has received phenomenal care from all of her teachers, including her instructional support and ESL teachers. She has made many different friends of all walks of life, friends who happen to speak Spanish as their first language and who live in multi-family dwellings nearby, friends who live in our neighborhood, friends in her Girl Scout troop who live in surrounding neighborhoods, friends with many different skin colors and religious backgrounds, and this makes me so proud. She recently worked up the courage to participate in International Day at Gwen to help represent China. She is absolutely blossoming due to the safety and consistency that she has had. Being uprooted from her home country at 8 years old was obviously very traumatic. Attaching to people and then being pulled away from them affects her more than the average person. She has worked very hard for the 2.5 years she has been with us to overcome so many physical and emotional struggles. As we were making plans to go to an upcoming appointment with an orthopedic specialist last Thursday evening, we learned that she was proposed to being rezoned to a new school next year. This major change is really almost more than she is going to be able to bear. This situation is a no-win no matter how we look at it. Either she will be uprooted or she will stay, but her friends will leave. I know that sometimes a major change is necessary for the greater good, but I do not feel that this is one of those times. I know that you have a very difficult decision to make, and I know that one little girl can't hold you back from doing what is best for the community as a whole. But we are just one story out of hundreds of others. Please think about all of the lives that will be affected. We need a plan that will make the most sense and that will be a long-term solution. Please determine what is actually broken and focus your resources there. Gwen Elementary is perfectly diverse and representative of the United States as a whole. Let us be that shining example for other schools to emulate.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Thank you. Hi.
Hi, Doctor. My name is Joel Clark. I am a Trace Crossings resident, and I am Trace Crossings parent. And I say those two things separately because under the current proposed plan, they are not the same thing. It was nice to come here today and listen to our neighbors in South Chase Crest Elementary and Rockstaff and the questions that they asked. Because should this plan move forward as it exists, I feel very well assured that my now third grader, who will go to Rockstaff next year, and my 4-year-old who will go to South Shades Crest next year will have a great experience in that the district is planning to put the resources in place at this school to make it function well as a 3 through 5. I also have no problem with the K through 2 and a 3 through 5. I came from schools like that 30 years ago. They did that to our entire district and paired them off between 1-story schools and 2-story schools. My concern with this plan is one that I'm sure that you'll avoid for Dr. We are in Trace Crossings. I pay dues to the Trace Crossings Residential Association, and I will no longer be going to my community school. My children will not be going there, my neighbors' children will not be going there. I can tell that some of the excitement that the folks here in Lake Cyrus have is the fact that they are forgetting a community school, and we are losing ours. When I spoke to you at the end of the last presentation when we first presented the rezoning plan, I was quite upset, and you told me to go back and look at everything, and so I did. And there is a theme that I saw in many of the statements that we Dr. Marquez made, and that is preserving, creating, trying to meet all the requirements we needed, and trying to preserve community schools. And that is not doing that for us. And considering that there is still 30% capacity at Trace Crossings, we really, as residents of the 5 out of 7, so not half of the neighborhoods, not just a couple, but the majority of Trace Crossings neighborhoods, would like to know why you can't stay there. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that concern. She did share that with me at our last meeting, and we'll continue to have conversations, and we've taken note that that is a concern for many in our Trace Crossings community. Thank you for sharing it again.
Hi, my name is Laura Jackman. I have two sons, 4th and 1st grade at Gwen. We also live in the preserve neighborhood. I've participated in this process as long as I've been around the last few years. And one constant throughout the entire process has been maintaining community schools. Kind of going along with what was just referenced about Trace Crossings, I was quite shocked when I looked at the proposed zoning plan, particularly after the meeting last week, where I understood you, Dr. Murphy, to say that you felt like the community schools were being preserved through this current proposed plan. I'd like to hear you speak a little bit as to how that might be, because when I look at it from the neighborhoods around us that are immediately affected, it appears to be that there are at least 9 neighborhoods, many of which have been developed around the premise of being walking neighborhoods. We walk to restaurants, we walk to school, we walk to the ballpark. Our picture in our subdivision even includes our neighborhood school. It's hard for me to understand how 9 neighborhoods can be plucked up and placed in a non-neighborhood school when, for instance, my children walk to school or walk home from school every day, and we're less than a half a mile from the building. It just seems to me that, particularly if the Trace folks are not interested in leaving their neighborhood either, there should be some kind of way that we can all work together to find a way to maintain these community schools. That's the reason that so many of us move to these neighborhoods near our schools, is to be able, in fact, to go to them.
Thank you, Ms. Jackman. We're aware that you have concerns as it relates to the preserve. We're aware that there are concerns with Trace Crossings, and certainly this plan by design was to give us community schools. It was also to be compliant with having non-contiguous boundaries, and I'm sure that if the school district had developed a plan in isolation, it perhaps would look differently than the fact that we're jointly working together to craft the very best plan we can to meet the expectations and needs of the school district, but at the same time not being remiss that there are some expectations and obligations of the school district specific to the court order.
Can you clarify particularly what areas there are that the DOJ is concerned about, or where these enclaves might be? It's hard. I feel like it's hard for us to understand. I know that a lot of thought has gone into this process. I have no doubt that that's the case. But without having some kind of discussion as to how this all came about, when you look at 9 neighborhoods that are uprooted, it doesn't make logical sense to people that weren't involved in the process. Are you able to shed a little bit of light on that? What specific areas is it that we're concerned about, because there's so many people being infected?
Well, one of the major things is that we have to be very thoughtful that there is no disproportionality specific to our black students as it would relate to one of the expectations of one of the plaintiffs involved in this process. So that expectation exists, that there are compliance needs for the school district related to all populations of students. We clearly, as a school district, do not believe that it's fair to any of our students, any students of any nationality, for that matter, to be picked up and then be dispersed around school districts in order to create diversity. All students have that same right to be as close as they can to their school. And we clearly understand that in trying to accomplish that not everybody is satisfied with that plan, and we've appropriately noted the concerns of the preserve. I and Melody and Ron today actually went out in our car and we drove those so that we could see that and feel that and look at the distance. So we are being very thoughtful about that suggestion, and we noted it on our board as something that we already realize is a concern for many. And we're driving those routes. We're going out to all of those areas who've expressed concerns to us. I think we got out to 3 or 4 today. And so, you know, we hear your concern. We know it's a concern, and we're going to continue to study and review that.
I appreciate that, because when you look at the zoning map, it doesn't account for the roads that are presently there. So I'm glad to know y'all know they're there.
And I will say this, Ms. Jackman, when we sat down with the other parties, it was very easy to say, oh, well, that neighborhood is really close to that school. But if you don't know the topography of our community, to get there is not that simple. In many cases, it's a route south, back up north and around the mountain or whatever. And so that's why being at the table with all the parties and understanding the topography of our community made that a much richer and more powerful conversation, because you can look at the map and make too many assumptions about, oh, that's just a hop, skip, and a jump. And indeed, it's not. So we are driving those routes and we're looking at it, and we understand the concerns that the preserve has.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Trish.
My name is Trish Frank, a long-term lifelong resident of Hoover. I stepped to the podium tonight. I don't have any children in school here anymore, but I still live next door to them. To address the young woman's question, I think it might help if people, I think, this isn't my question, but in 2004 there was a rezoning that was done, and I think Mr. Sweeney alluded to it earlier this evening, that in order to achieve racial diversity in equal numbers, whole apartment complexes full of children who happen to be black were picked up and bused other places. Okay? I guess 12 years ago that was an acceptable method to the Department of Justice to achieve racial disparity. I mean, this diversity. Okay. And Mr. Sweeney said he doesn't think he can say that. Well, the plan was approved. We can put it that way. The plan was approved. So in those years since, the thinking, I think Dr. Murphy, tell me if I'm wrong, alluded to that, you know, now we've changed our minds about the way things are done. So I think when you say enclave, I do think there's still some folks who don't really understand what enclave is, and I can tell you there were a few apartment complexes that the surrounding areas of single-family homes were zoned to one elementary school. But an apartment complex that sat in the middle of them, those kids were put on a bus and transported to a different elementary school. And I think it's fair to say that's what we're looking at. That's when we talk about enclaves, we're correcting that enclave that we created in 2004. Okay? But my question to you tonight is more about programs, as we now are sort of undoing what we did in 2004, and we're reconcentrating kids who, regardless of where they live, there may be a higher concentration of poverty. I want to ask you to please make sure that the programs are in place if the poverty level of students is going to increase. And studies have been done, they look at one at the state level, that it takes more resources to educate kids who come from homes in poverty. And so we have a lot of local resources here in Hoover. We're blessed with that, and a lot of school districts don't have. And I hope that you can look at using those resources efficiently and targeting those resources instead of just worry about dishing out the same amount of money to every school. Really look at the kids and see what they need. And so that is, I haven't heard a lot of talk about programs except the discussion about ISPs. So that's what I come to the podium to ask you to please keep that in mind.
Yes, thank you. So when we think about poverty, that poverty is determined by the number of students on free and reduced lunches. And we have currently 5 of our schools who are identified as Title I schools based on the percentage of those students whose families are struggling with free and reduced lunch. Based on the proposed plan, it'll be 3, possibly 4, as we continue to study and review and see its impact. So if we go from 5 to 4 or 5 to 3, the advantage is there are more resources for those schools. So one school's being taken out of pulling some of those federal funds, and those resources can then get into those schools that will have those higher percentages of students who are struggling. You're absolutely right. Children in poverty very frequently need more resources to bring them to grade level and to help them meet those expectations. And so not only are Title I funds designed to do that, but it's incumbent upon us as a community and a school district also to be thoughtful about the additional resources we need to put behind helping every child be successful. Thank you, Trish. We have about 15 minutes, so if you just have a need or a desire, not a need, a desire to come on up to the microphone, we'll start to pull it together here shortly. So thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Michelle Calabrese, and I have a 4th grader at Gwynn. And first I want to say, I didn't plan to come up, and I'm very nervous, so I'm reading, and I'm on 2%, so it's about to die. But I bought into the school system. We did. Hoover City Schools. We moved from Cincinnati. And if I live in the preserve, and if I was walking distance from Gwynn and Trace Crossings, I would say, tell me where you need me. Tell me where you need me. I'll go. I sub in the school system. I enjoy and appreciate every teacher, every person, everybody in this school system. But with that said, there is something to be said about the sustainability factor. And my purpose for coming up is that I'm not sure that that is a big enough focus right now. We say we want the education to be sustainable, but the whole city, the whole Hoover City Schools, the entire program has to be sustainable. And we're evidence for that. We're an urban community. We're a livable community. If you polled everybody here, I bet 8 out of 10 of us would say, I would love to live in a community where I could walk or bike somewhere. I don't know who wouldn't. And that's why I think everyone's so happy. I love what you did. Thank you. I'm so close to my school. You know, that's great. And I'm not denying that that's not great. My question, and I have a question at the end of this, but I feel strongly that this rezoning is denying the growth and progress in other aspects of sustainability. This plan is not sustainable. It disrupts the efforts of so many as we move towards health, clean transportation, clean energy, and a strong infrastructure that focuses on urban design and livable communities. We have a university. UAB has a master's program in smart, sustainable cities. We're going for that. This is global. We want to be smart. We want to be sustainable. We don't want someone who can walk to a school, childhood obesity, childhood heart disease. We don't want to put them on a bus. Not to mention, I would like an answer to how is that sustainable? What is it doing for the air? We have so many schools. Amber Lewis is up for the award, Teacher of the Year. I helped her put 2 tower gardens in that classroom. She's all over the news. That's sustainable. They're studying. She's an environmental biology teacher. She's studying with her kids sustainable life. This is life. This is not, let's do what's right. I believe truly we could obtain unitary status if you first and foremost put kids who are in walking distance, whether they're in a neighborhood or an apartment, first and foremost, put those kids in that walkable distance school, and anyone outside of 2 miles, if they're going to be bused anyway, work with your numbers to reach that unitary status. I believe it can be done, and that's my question. What other options were on the table? Oh, and Bluff Park, Green School, Gwynn. Everybody has obtained, so many schools have obtained this Green Award, this National Green Award. We're not even thinking about that, or are we thinking about that? This is big stuff. Safe Routes to School has been at Rocky Ridge, Gwynn, Bluff Park. Bluff Park is adding sidewalks. Why? For the purpose of having a livable community, a livable, walkable community. That's what we want. And you're going to put kids that can walk to school, that do walk to school. And I've heard rumors that people say they're only walking for the cameras. And that's a lie. Our kids walk, they might not walk to school, but they walk home from school. And that might be just because it's cold or they're tired in the morning. But we walk, and they should walk. You're denying kids. It's kind of mean. I'm sorry. I think it's mean to say, you can walk to school, but honey, you're gonna get on a bus. Are you kidding? Read the global report, the United States, not global, reports about kids and how good it is for them. That we have to be an urban, forward-thinking, livable community, and that must factor into this decision. And I really believe if you ran the numbers, or if you had whoever did this, whatever company, whoever came in from whatever state to run these numbers for us, if you had them do it with putting people in walkable distance first, I bet you could achieve your goals of unitary status. And that's my question. Do we have any other options? Were there 4 or 5 or 3 or 4, or was there only one presented? That's my specific question.
We have provided to our public the plan that we crafted and drafted in relation, in tandem, and collaboratively with the other plaintiffs, or the 2 plaintiffs to this party.
Thank you. So it was one plan that was crafted? Just one?
Oh, there have been multiple plans crafted, but we've presented, as we shared with you, we had plans that might have been closing schools. We had a plan that was going to split a middle school. There were multiple plans and conversations, but what we've shared with the public was our due diligence, our best thinking, our best processes going into that. And by the way, we brought no companies in from out of state. We've done our homework. We were thoughtful and savvy as it related to our school district's budget. There was one gentleman that came in and helped us look at capacity and utilization. But outside of that, there's been no companies brought in to do this process for us.
Thank you, and that's all. But it's for us to do it and look at it. But so we weren't presented as a public with more than just the one opportunity.
The thought is this: we share with you the plan, and this very well could morph into something that's different, that becomes a different plan based on the input of our public.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. All right, so we're drawing nigh for time, so if I could, I'm going to go to my right side this time.
Hey, I'm John. I'm Liam, the father of Gwen and Simmons. I have 2 children, Gwen. We are one of the lucky ones who get to stay in Gwen. We are actually just a couple of streets down from the cut. But that's kind of where I'm going. I'm apologizing. I don't know the name of the document. It's a legal document that was filed with the courts. In there, I know it's 7C about safety. The borders are supposed to be drawn with interstates, rivers, things such as that. However, Trace crosses 31, 459, and 150. And now Gwen will cross 459 and 31. So I wondered if you could talk to how we were able to get around that regulation in that document with those 2 zones, while we're able to avoid that.
I'm not able to speak to that because I do not know what document you're making reference to. Thank you. If you would do that, I'd appreciate it. Okay? Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Chris Monty. I have 2 children that presently attend Gwen, and 2 in the pipeline that were slated to matriculate to Gwen. It seems to me that our goal of attempting to achieve unitary status and solve our capacity issues all in one stroke is causing us to have to consider a rezoning plan that is a lot more complex than it might otherwise be if we were solving our capacity issues alone. And this discussion seems to revolve entirely around transportation and not at all around education. And I just want to point out that in 2012, Stanford University published a study of over 200 school systems that achieved unitary status via a comprehensive student reassignment plan like we're considering. And that study found that within 5 years, the population of those school systems, the student population, had migrated back to a level of segregation that was greater than when they were designated unitary. And this was especially true of school systems that were located in the South, had a reassignment plan that focused on the elementary levels, and had student populations that were largely integrated to begin with. Sound familiar? So my question is, given the existence of this data, why haven't we been more aggressive challenging the LDF's assertions that the differing bus ride distances create a disproportionate burden on these minority students? Because I think our city can shoot for something higher. I think instead of relying on a conventional reassignment plan that so many other school systems have used to achieve unitary status, that we ought to be thinking more aspirationally.
I would like to say, as it relates to the LDF and as it relates to the Department of Justice, that they have not forced any plan on us, that we have clearly sat at the table and we have engaged as partners, that there has been lots of conversations, lots of study, and lots of research that's gone on between the parties. I would like for you to know that we have advocated on any and every level for our children and for our school district. I've not heard the same conversation you've heard, that it's all about transportation. And so if that has been left in your mind or other people's minds, let me say to you clearly, the objective for me is children, their safety, their well-being, and their education. So again, I'm not, there is no adversarial relationship where any parties have pushed on us a plan, but we do realize that if we were to try to look at our capacity this year, ignore the expectations of the court, the Legal Defense Fund, the Department of Justice, we will very soon be coming right back to this table having another conversation, and rather than a zoning that will allow us to have some shelf life, we'll be coming back to rezone in very short order.
I'm not sure I understand that last point. Sorry for being dense.
Well, you had made a comment about you thought it was because we were trying to address the capacity and the utilization piece and trying to mix that at the same time with the expectations of the court. And you seem to allude to the fact that this should be a standalone process specific to the needs of the school district. My response to you is, if we address one piece of this at this time and create a rezoning plan to help us with the utilization piece, you're in very short order going to come right back to this table, because we're under pending litigation with the courts to achieve unitary status and to desegregate under that court order. So under your theory, it would be one and done perhaps. I'm saying to you that we need to meet the obligations of the school district, but we must and have to be thoughtful about the expectations of the court.
Right, and I understand those expectations. I think my point is, we've accepted that the rezoning is the only mechanism to achieve unitary status. I understand the rezoning is necessary to handle our capacity problems. It just seems like from the early February 2015 conference with Judge Heikla, rezoning was just an inevitable part of all of this to achieve unitary status. And since data exists, it shows that these reassignment plans are ultimately going to hurt the very children that they're purported to help, that we might be in a position to challenge that assumption.
Mr. Monty, I would encourage you to go and take a review and a study of the 6 green factor expectations. And one of those green factors is very clearly the student assignment plan, which is specifically rezoning. So in order to meet that green factor for unitary status, I don't know what other options there are on the table.
I think I would just simply say that these reassignment plans have been used to achieve unitary status for an awful long time, but only until recently has there been the opportunity to study their actual impact. I mean, this data is very recent, so the inclusion of a reassignment plan as one of the green factors has existed likely for several decades, but this data is very recent. And so I feel like perhaps we ought to hold ourselves to a higher standard and simply challenge all these assumptions about how you actually desegregate.
Thank you for that observation. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Maureen Hudson. I'm a teacher at Hoover High School, but I'm really here to speak to the parents at Gwinnett Elementary. I have several concerns, obviously, about the think that the South Shades Crest, I'm very happy for those neighborhoods like Cyrus, but I too would like to be walking distance to my community school. I'm also here to speak about the movement of apartments because from the research that I've seen, it looks that 22 out of 40 apartments have moved. And when we have, if I'm correct, I think this is correct, but 5 apartments are leaving Gwen and 4 are coming in, all different apartments. And these are Hispanic students. I think that Gwen is losing approximately 60 Hispanic students, and I would assume that 60 more are coming in. So the caseload for those ELL teachers, I'm also a French teacher, so I know a little bit about learning language as a second language, but all of those people are going to come in and have to totally relearn a network, totally relearn who their ELL teachers are and who they're going to have to relearn the school, and all of those parents have made connections with their ELL community. Of course, ideally, I'd love for one to stay exactly as it is because it's a wonderful school with very equal, proportionate. As we've said, it's a perfect, almost a near perfect match to the national averages for schools as far as diversity. And I just feel like that's another consideration that needs to be considered.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pitts. Yes.
My name is Peggy Newsom, and I'm a Trace Crossings parent and also a Brock's Gap parent. And our Trace Crossings student is currently in the 4th grade. And I have noticed a few of the comments that you've made tonight have been in regard to keeping a continuous bubble where the children are moving within the same feeder pattern that they would have otherwise. And then also that you're looking out for the well-being of our students on all aspects, educational, emotional, and social. And I want to address that for 1 second because we're one of the few families in our area. We live in Lakeview, which right now as it stands would mean that our 4th grader would get to go to Trace Crossings for 5th grade. Yay, except that it meant that she's going there now with 70% of the friends that she's had since kindergarten gone. So it's basically our school, but a completely different our school. And then here's the real kicker. In 6th grade, she'll get moved to Simmons Middle School. I don't see how that's a continuous bubble or how that's socially looking out for the well-being of our child. There she will be in that school in the most volatile social developmental years. Scott Mitchell can definitely back me up on that because he's dealing with all those kiddos in this school. So she's going to get 3 years to build friendships in the most socially awkward and volatile part of her entire life. And then when it comes time for 9th grade, they're going to pluck her out of Simmons and move her back to Hoover with a whole new group of people that she hasn't seen in 3 years and doesn't know. And we're just trying to figure out how that is looking out for the well-being of our children. We're one of only 3 families in our entire neighborhood that have 4th graders, and those 3 children could not possibly impact the numbers that the school system is hoping to see impacted on their own.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Simmons. I've got children at Gwen and Simmons, and I live in the Preserve. It looks like I've got the parting shot here tonight, so I just want to really press into all of you who are making these decisions that community schools are the heartbeat of our community. This is something that must be protected. We're trying to make sense of a new plan here that doesn't make sense to us. We're looking at a zone, and I don't know, some of you Deer Valley, South Shades Crest parents, I know I'm not paying close attention to your new drawings, and you're probably not paying close attention to mine. But right now, Gwen is that yellow zone, the one that goes up and around the purple. My neighborhood is the purple. I feel like all of a sudden we're becoming an enclave. We have people going around our neighborhood to get to our school. We're waving to our friends in other neighborhoods as they come towards our school and as we go away. And then along the way, we're going to pass the Trace Crossings parents who are now going somewhere else while we go to their neighborhood to go to school. So I just beg of you, we need you to advocate for us as you deal with the Department of Justice and the legal systems. We're reading the briefs, we're reading all the filings, we're trying to understand, and might I add, we're really joining this conversation late. We are just now looking at these documents and trying to dig them out and find them. What we're finding is that we're trying to meet the needs of outside parties, and along the way, we're tearing apart our neighborhood schools. We've got kids now crossing Highway 31 and going past Green Valley to come on down to Gwen. We're crossing Highway 150 and going over to Trace. And I think on paper, you know, the color matches up all the way. So that's our definition now of contiguous zones, is that the yellow touches all of the yellow, and that's a contiguous zone. So what I just want to remind you is that that's not how these neighborhoods and communities work. That's not a contiguous zone, and we're leaving behind the heart of our community to go to someone else's community where they don't want to leave their school. So please bear in mind the community schools idea.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. I believe we have one last speaker.
I think mine will be easy. Bricker Daltrey, I have 2 students at Gwen as well. I'd like to echo the other Gwen parents that have come before me, but I'd like some suggestions before the Gwen meeting last week. I'd like to see the PowerPoint that was used tonight available on the website. I think that would be a good informational tool for us.
I believe it posted when we started this meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'd also like to know of any changes to the plan that occur after the meetings to advise us as the community of what's happened and what advice has been taken, such as the 4th graders or 1st graders being tenured. Now, I'll save the rest of my piece for the Gwen meeting, but I appreciate the time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Autry. Thank you so much. We realized that there is a conflict. We actually talked with our HPTC parents this morning and said, you know, should we take a look at trying to change that? We looked at Wednesday evenings and we're thoughtful about those going to church. None of the meetings will exclude anyone who wants to speak. But, you know, it's very difficult to place meetings on our calendars where we're not bumping into something. But anyone in our community to come and speak at any of our meetings.
Okay. Well, tonight initially I felt that this was really for the people of that zone, and you made that
And it was. I did make that clear because I really think we should give deference to the community that we're in. And but I don't think we've excluded anybody who had or needed the microphone either. Thank you.
Okay. I think you should change it.
Okay, thank you. And we can take a look. We'll continue to discuss that. I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. Your input has been valuable, very respectful audience, and I want to thank you for that too. Hope you have a great night. Be safe.